The courthouse building looked bigger than Maya remembered. The front steps were wide, the doors were heavy, and the tall glass reflected the gray morning sky. People moved in and out in a steady flow. Some looked rushed. Some looked tired. Some looked like they had been awake all night. Maya walked up the steps slowly, holding a thin folder against her chest. She wore a plain dark coat and simple shoes. She did not dress to impress. She dressed to be taken seriously. Inside, the air felt cold and dry. The lobby smelled like paper, cleaning spray, and old wood. A security gate beeped again and again as people passed through. Maya waited her turn, placed her bag in a tray, and walked through the scanner with calm steps. Her face stayed neutral, but her mind was sharp. A guard glanced at her folder. "What's that?" "Documents," Maya said. "For what?" "For a court matter," she answered, clear and polite. The guard nodded without warmth and waved her forward. Maya picked up her bag and moved on. She did not waste energy reacting to small things. She saved her energy for what mattered. Maya had learned that lesson years ago. As she walked down the hall, she passed people sitting on benches. A man in a bright jacket bounced his knee. A woman held a crying baby close. A teenager stared at the floor like the tiles had answers. A few lawyers walked fast, speaking into phones, their voices low but urgent. Maya kept going until she reached the door marked Courtroom 4B. She stopped for a moment and took one quiet breath. Not because she was afraid, but because she wanted control. Today required control. She opened the door and stepped inside. The courtroom was already half full. The benches creaked as people shifted. A court clerk sat near the front, sorting papers with quick fingers. The judge's bench stood higher than everything else, like a stage. Behind it, the judge's chair looked larger than it needed to be. Two officers stood near the side of the room. They wore clean uniforms and stiff expressions. One of them spoke to the clerk, pointing toward a list. The other scanned the room like he was searching for trouble. Maya walked toward the front, staying close to the aisle. She was not late. She was not early. She was on time, exactly as written in the notice she received. A sign near the front said, "Please wait until your name is called." So Maya waited. She stood near the sidewall, holding her folder. Her eyes moved over the room, not judging anyone, just reading the space. She noticed the small details people missed. The clerk's nervous tapping. The judge's empty seat. The way one officer kept his hand near his belt even though nothing was happening. A few minutes passed. Then a voice cut through the quiet. "Hey, you." Maya turned her head. The officer closest to her stepped forward. He was tall and broad, with a tight jaw. His partner watched from behind, arms crossed. "Yes," Maya said. "You can't stand there." The sign did not say that. But Maya did not argue. "Where should I stand?" she asked. The officer pointed toward the back, near the door, where people were already crowded. "Back there." Maya took a small step as if to move, then paused. "I'm here for a scheduled matter," she said. "I was told to wait near the front." The officer's eyes narrowed. His tone grew harder. "I said back there." A few people turned their heads. The room felt like it leaned in to listen, but nobody spoke. Maya looked at the officer's badge, then met his eyes again. "Okay," she said. She started walking toward the back. She moved calmly, giving him what he wanted without giving him a scene. That was her rule. Do not feed the fire. Save the truth for the right moment. But as she passed the officer, he stepped closer, too close. His shoulder bumped her arm. It was not an accident. It was a message. Maya's folder slipped slightly in her grip. The officer's hand lifted, quick and sharp. It did not strike her in a way that caused harm, but it was a rough, humiliating gesture, like he was swatting away a problem instead of speaking to a person. The sound echoed in the quiet room more than it should have. Maya froze for half a second. Not because she was weak. because she was measuring the moment. The officer's partner chuckled under his breath, then stopped when he saw the way Maya lifted her gaze. Her face stayed calm, but something changed in her eyes. A switch flipped from patience to precision. The clerk looked up, startled. Some people in the benches stared openly now. A man in a suit shifted uncomfortably, like he wanted to disappear. A woman near the aisle pressed her lips together and looked down. Maya did not touch her face. She did not step back. She did not raise her voice. She simply continued walking to the back, as instructed, and stood near the door. Her hands tightened around the folder, not in anger, but in focus. She knew what many people never learned. In some rooms, power does not come from noise. It comes from timing. The court clerk called out, "All rise." Everyone stood. A door behind the bench opened, and Judge Harris entered. He was older, with gray hair and a tired expression. He sat down, adjusted his robe, and glanced at the paperwork in front of him like he wanted the day to end before it began. "Be seated," he said. People sat. Judge Harris looked toward the clerk. "First case." The clerk read a name. A man stood. The judge listened. The case moved quickly. It was small, simple, and finished in minutes. Then another name. Another matter. Another quick decision. Maya watched everything without shifting her posture. She listened like each word mattered, even when the case did not seem important. She studied the judge's habits. How he asked questions. When he got impatient. When he stopped listening. She studied the officers too. The one who had pushed her stood near the side, looking proud of himself. He scanned the room like a guard at a door, deciding who belonged. Maya waited. The clerk read another case. Then another. Time passed slowly, but Maya's mind stayed active. The folder in her hands was not full of ordinary papers. It was organized, labeled, and marked with careful tabs. Each page had a purpose. A man near her whispered to someone, "This place is a mess." Maya did not respond. The clerk called a name that sounded close to Maya's. Then finally the clerk said, "Maya Lane." Maya stepped forward. The movement drew attention. People followed her with their eyes as she walked from the back to the front. Her steps were steady. Her chin was lifted. Her folder was held at the same angle, like it was part of her. The officer who had bumped her shifted his stance. "You," he muttered as she approached. Maya did not stop. She reached the center, where people usually stood to speak. She faced the bench and waited for the judge to look up. Judge Harris glanced at her briefly, then looked down again, flipping a page. "Yes," he said. "State your matter." Maya spoke in a clear, calm voice. "Your Honor, before we begin, I would like to request permission to submit a document for the record." Judge Harris looked up, now paying a bit more attention. "What kind of document?" "A court order," Maya said. The judge paused. The room shifted again, like a quiet wave moved through the benches. Judge Harris leaned forward slightly. "Approach and hand it to the clerk." Maya walked to the clerk's desk and placed the document on top, face up. The clerk picked it up, scanning the first lines. Her eyes widened, then narrowed, then widened again. The clerk looked at Maya, then at the judge, then back at the paper. Her mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came out at first. Judge Harris tapped his pen. "Clerk." The clerk swallowed. "Your Honor, this is marked urgent." "Bring it here," the judge said. The clerk stood and walked the paper up to the bench. The courtroom was so quiet that the sound of her steps seemed loud. She handed it to the judge like she was holding something fragile. Judge Harris took the document, adjusted his glasses, and began reading. At first, his face did not change. Then his eyebrows lifted. Then his lips pressed together. He read again, slower this time, as if trying to make sure he understood. The officer near the side noticed the judge's expression and leaned slightly, trying to see. His partner also leaned, curiosity growing. Maya stood still, hands folded in front of her, calm as stone. Judge Harris looked up. His voice was different now, more careful. "Ms. Lane," he said, "where did you get this?" Maya answered without hesitation. "It was delivered to me directly, as instructed." Judge Harris looked down again and read the top line one more time. His hand tightened on the page. The clerk returned to her seat, eyes locked on Maya like she was seeing her for the first time. The judge's gaze lifted again. "This says you are here under official assignment." "Yes, Your Honor," Maya said. The courtroom held its breath. The officer who had shoved Maya shifted his feet. The confidence in his posture faded, replaced by something uncertain. Judge Harris looked at Maya, then at the clerk, then at the officers. His mouth opened as if he wanted to ask more, but he stopped, as if the paper itself answered the question. Maya's voice stayed steady. "Your Honor, I am prepared to proceed according to the order." The judge's eyes narrowed slightly. "And you are prepared to take responsibility for the proceedings today?" Maya did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply said the truth. "Yes." Judge Harris leaned back in his chair, still holding the document. He looked down at it again, then across the room, like he could suddenly feel every eye watching him. The officer near the side took one step back without meaning to. Maya remained at the center of the courtroom, calm, steady, and ready. And in that moment, everyone understood something important. Whatever they thought this day was going to be, they were wrong. Judge Harris lifted his hand slowly, as if the weight of the next words mattered. Then he spoke, and the entire courtroom felt the shift. "Court will pause for a brief recess," he said. "Clerk, secure the room." He looked directly at Maya. "Ms. Lane, please step forward." Maya took a single step toward the bench. The judge's chair, high above the room, sat empty behind him, waiting like a symbol. And Maya's folder, still thick with carefully prepared pages, rested in her hands like the key to a door nobody knew existed. The courtroom stayed silent as Judge Harris stood up from his seat. His chair scraped softly against the floor, a sound that felt louder than it should have. He held the document in his hand, still reading parts of it as if he wanted to be completely certain. "Everyone will remain seated," he said, his voice firm but controlled. "Officers, step back." The words landed heavily. The two officers exchanged quick looks. The one who had pushed Maya earlier hesitated, then took a step away from the center. His partner followed, both moving closer to the wall. Their confidence was gone now, replaced by confusion and tension. Maya stood still at the front. Her posture remained calm, her hands relaxed at her sides. Inside, her mind stayed sharp. She had expected resistance. She had prepared for doubt. What she did not expect was how quickly the room changed once authority shifted. Judge Harris turned slightly toward the clerk. "Please verify this order with administration immediately." The clerk nodded, hands moving fast as she reached for the phone and computer. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her focus was strong. She spoke quietly into the receiver, reading out reference numbers and dates. The courtroom waited. People on the benches leaned forward without realizing it. No one whispered now. No one moved. It felt like time had slowed, stretched thin between breaths. Maya glanced briefly toward the officers. The one who had touched her earlier avoided her eyes. His jaw tightened, and his shoulders stiffened. The power he had used so freely before no longer belonged to him. Judge Harris stepped down from the bench and walked toward Maya. He stopped a few feet away, keeping a professional distance. "Ms. Lane," he said, "you understand the weight of what this order means." "Yes, Your Honor," Maya replied. "I understand fully. And you are aware that once this process begins, it cannot be undone today." "Yes," she said again. The judge studied her face. He was looking for uncertainty, fear, or doubt. He found none. What he saw instead was readiness. The clerk cleared her throat softly. "Your Honor." Judge Harris turned. "I've confirmed it," the clerk said. The order is valid and active. A low breath moved through the room, like air finally released. Judge Harris nodded slowly. Very well. He turned back to Maya. Please follow me. Maya walked with him toward the bench. Each step felt measured, not rushed, not hesitant. She was not walking toward power. She was walking toward responsibility. When they reached the front, Judge Harris paused. He placed the document on the bench, then removed his robe carefully, folding it over the back of the chair. He faced the courtroom. For the remainder of today's session, he announced, authority will proceed according to this order. He stepped aside. The judge's chair stood empty for a moment. Then Maya moved forward. She stepped behind the bench, adjusted the chair slightly, and sat down. The wood creaked softly under her weight. She placed the document neatly on the desk and folded her hands in front of her. The sight was striking. Not because of drama, but because of clarity. Everything suddenly made sense. Maya lifted her gaze and looked out over the courtroom. Her eyes moved slowly, calmly, meeting faces one by one. She was not challenging anyone. She was acknowledging them. Court is now in session, she said. Her voice was steady and clear. The clerk sat straighter in her seat. The officers stood fully back now, hands clasped behind them. People on the benches adjusted themselves, sitting up with new attention. Maya began by addressing the room. This courtroom exists to serve fairness, she said. Every person here deserves respect, regardless of why they are present. She paused, letting the words settle. Order will be maintained through professionalism, not force. Her eyes moved briefly toward the officers, then back to the room. She did not accuse. She did not embarrass. She stated expectations. Clerk, Maya said, please call the next case. The clerk responded quickly, her voice stronger now. A case was called. A man stood, nervous and unsure. Maya listened closely as he spoke. She asked simple, direct questions. She did not interrupt. She did not rush him. When the other side spoke, she listened again. She weighed their words carefully, taking notes as needed. Her decision was clear and explained in plain language. The man nodded, relieved to understand what was happening. The next case followed. Then, another. With each one, the room changed. Voices softened. Arguments became shorter. People felt heard, even when the outcome was not in their favor. Maya kept the pace steady. She respected time, but she never made anyone feel small. Judge Harris stood to the side, watching quietly. His expression was thoughtful. He had been on the bench for years, but he had never seen the room operate like this. During a short pause, Maya addressed the officers directly. Officers, she said, please step forward. They obeyed immediately, standing straight before the bench. Maya spoke calmly. Your role here is to ensure safety, not to decide who belongs. She paused. Today is a reminder of that. The officers nodded. There was no argument. No excuses. You may return to your positions, she said. They stepped back, faces serious, movements careful. The clerk called another case. Time moved on. Outside, the day grew brighter, sunlight pushing through the tall windows and casting long shapes across the floor. Inside, the atmosphere remained focused and calm. During a brief recess, Maya reviewed notes quietly. She did not leave the bench. She did not seek attention. She prepared. A woman approached the front slowly when her case was called. Her hands shook as she spoke. Maya leaned forward slightly, softening her tone. Take your time, Maya said. The woman breathed easier and continued. That small moment mattered more than anyone realized. As the session continued, people began to understand something powerful. Authority did not have to be loud. Control did not require fear. Respect could exist without force. Judge Harris finally stepped closer during another pause. You're doing well, he said quietly. Maya nodded once. This is how it should be. The judge watched her for a moment longer, then stepped back again. Near the end of the session, the officer who had pushed Maya earlier shifted his weight nervously. He looked toward the bench, then down at the floor. Maya noticed. When a natural pause came, she addressed the room again. Before we conclude, she said, I want to remind everyone that the law is strongest when it is applied evenly. Her eyes rested on the officer, not sharply, but clearly. Moments of authority reveal character. She let the words rest. Court will adjourn shortly, she said. Clerk, prepare the final entries. As the clerk worked, Maya sat back slightly. The room was quiet again, but this time it was not tense. It was respectful. When the final case ended, Maya stood. This session is adjourned, she said. People rose from their seats slowly. Some looked at each other. Some looked back at the bench. No one rushed to leave. Maya stepped away from the chair and moved toward the front of the bench. Judge Harris approached her. You handled today with care, he said. That matters. Maya nodded. It always does. The officers stepped aside as she passed. This time, there was no hesitation, no attitude. Just space. As Maya walked toward the exit, she felt the weight of the day settle in her chest. Not as exhaustion, but as understanding. This was not the end of the story. It was only the moment everyone finally saw what preparation looks like when opportunity arrives. The courtroom slowly emptied after the session ended. Benches creaked as people stood. Shoes brushed against the floor. Soft voices filled the air, not loud, not rushed. It felt different now, like the room itself had learned something. Maya gathered her papers calmly. She stacked them neatly, aligning the edges the way she always did. Order mattered to her. Not because she loved control, but because order gave people a sense of safety. Judge Harris remained nearby. He watched as the clerk finished final notes and shut down the computer. The officers stood by the wall, silent and still. They no longer looked like they owned the space. They looked like they were part of it. Maya stepped away from the bench and walked toward the center of the room. A few people paused as she passed, offering small nods of respect. No one clapped. No one spoke loudly. The respect was quiet, but real. At the exit, Maya stopped. She turned back toward the room one last time. Before I leave, she said calmly, I want to say something to everyone here. People stopped moving. Even those halfway out the door turned around. This place represents fairness, Maya continued. Not perfection. Not power. Fairness. She looked around the room slowly. Fairness requires effort. From the bench, from the staff, and from those who enforce order. Her eyes rested briefly on the officers, then moved on. I trust that what happened today will not be forgotten. She nodded once and turned toward the door. Outside, the afternoon air felt warmer. The sun had moved higher in the sky, lighting the courthouse steps. Maya walked down them slowly, her shoulders relaxed now that the weight of responsibility had lifted. She did not feel proud. She felt clear. Her phone buzzed softly in her pocket. She ignored it for the moment and continued walking. She needed a few quiet minutes to herself. Across the street, a small group of people stood talking. One of them recognized her and pointed. Others followed her with their eyes as she passed. Maya did not change her pace. She reached her car and paused before opening the door. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Moments like these did not happen by accident. They were built through years of learning, waiting, and preparing for doors that might never open. Today, one had opened. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she answered. Yes, she said. A voice on the other end spoke quickly, professional and focused. Maya listened without interrupting. I understand, she replied. I will submit my report by tomorrow morning. She ended the call and got into her car. As she drove away, she passed the courthouse again in her rear mirror. It looked smaller now. Not because it had changed, but because her place in the world had become clearer. Inside the building, Judge Harris sat alone in his chambers. He stared at the document Maya had brought, now resting on his desk. He had seen many people walk through his courtroom. Very few had changed it. He leaned back and sighed. She reminded us, he said quietly to himself. In the hallway outside, the clerk spoke softly with another staff member. She didn't raise her voice once, the clerk said. Not even when she had every reason to. The other staff member nodded. That takes strength. Back in the courtroom, the officers remained for a few minutes after everyone left. The one who had pushed Maya earlier stood staring at the empty bench. His reflection stared back at him from the polished wood. He did not feel angry. He felt small. His partner broke the silence. We need to do better. The officer nodded slowly. Yes, he said. We do. That evening, Maya sat at her kitchen table with a cup of tea. Papers were spread out in front of her, but she was not reading them yet. She stared out the window at the quiet street. Her home was simple, clean, calm. She thought about the faces she had seen in the courtroom. The nervous man, the shaking woman, the tired clerk, the proud officer, the thoughtful judge. Each of them carried something unseen. She opened her laptop and began typing her report. Her words were clear and careful. She did not exaggerate. She did not attack. She described events exactly as they happened. Truth did not need decoration. As she typed, she paused once, then added a final note. Respect must be practiced, not assumed. She saved the document and closed the laptop. Later that night, messages appeared online. People shared stories of what they had witnessed. Some wrote about fairness. Others wrote about calm strength. None of them knew Maya personally, but they felt the impact of her presence. By morning, the courthouse felt different. Staff greeted each other more carefully. Officers spoke with more restraint. The clerk sat taller at her desk. Change did not happen all at once, but it had started. Maya returned to her routine. She went back to her regular work, helped students in the evenings, and lived quietly. She did not seek attention or praise. She knew something important. Real power does not come from a title or a seat. It comes from preparation meeting the moment. And somewhere inside that courthouse, long after the chairs were empty and the benches were silent, the memory remained. The day respect walked in calmly, waited patiently, and when the time came, took its rightful place.